Hey everyone, welcome back. I'm so excited. Today I have Chad Miller of Life Abundant Leadership. I've met Chad through NIA. It's a local networking group here in Austin. But I've met Chad here. We hit it off. He does a really great job helping businesses change their culture. And I know that you hear culture and you're like, okay, well, that's kind of a buzzword, cliche, things like that. But Chad has some really great insights into how that really helps businesses retain employees and talent, and how they also save money through that. You'll have to check out the interview to hear what Chad has to say to that, because he has some really great insights, not just for businesses who have a lot of employees or maybe some employees, but really just kind of thinking through for business owners in general, and really having persistence with a purpose. And so that was really awesome to hear his interview. As usual, I'm going to put all of his description or his links in the description. So if you want to connect with Chad further, check out the links in the description. I hope you enjoy the interview. I hope that you get as much, if not more, out of it as I did, because I really enjoyed interviewing Chad, and I really hope that you enjoy it. If you have any questions or you want to connect with Chad, check out the links in the description. If you want to leave a comment, and I'll definitely try to respond to that as well. So enjoy the interview, and I'll talk to you later. Well, hey, welcome back. And thank you so much, Chad, for taking some more time out of your day. I know we had some technical difficulties earlier, and so thank you so much for doing it again on this platform. So I appreciate it. Chad, I have known from NIA, and we've had some coffee, and we have a kind of semi-similar backgrounds, but he's definitely a lot smarter than I am. So he's really a great guy. And Chad, why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about, you don't have to be too personal, but we do need to know what your social security ID and your blood type and everything. No, go ahead, Chad, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. So the common backgrounds that you mentioned, I know we both have a passion for helping people grow their lives through faith and shape their lives in that way. So I have some backgrounds in that, did my first master's in theology and ministry, but then my brain's always worked for tech. So I worked for 15 years in corporate IT, working for Fortune 500 companies in web development, RPA, robotic process automation. But my passion has always been helping people grow and succeed. That was the common theme in ministry, but also as I went into tech was just a way for me to help people. And while I was doing that, I did a master's in organizational leadership. Loved everything that I was studying, things about helping people grow their leadership capacity, create better teams, higher performing teams, creating work environments where employees love going to work because it's fun and engaging and they've got a great team of people that they work with. You know, that's the work environment that everybody wants. And as I was studying the different consulting firms that help people create those kinds of workplaces, create a culture that really engages employees, empowers them to be their best and achieve the best, which helps the company grow and all. I was like, I love this. This is what I want to do. And so a couple of years ago, quit my corporate gig, started Life Abundant Leadership. And that's the consulting firm that I have now, helping people create great leaders, great teams, and great company culture. If you have those three things, people can perform at their best, companies will be more successful, and they'll enjoy the work they're doing while they do it.
Awesome. And since you've quit, I'm sure it's just been all just wine and roses, and just, man, it's been super, awesome with that. And so I say that, jokingly, because, I think sometimes it's like, oh, okay, cool. Well, I'm going to quit. And I'm talking about myself here. It's like, well, I'm going to quit because, I want to do something. Because as you said, I find this fulfilling, and you found helping people in different settings, and you can see that kind of servant heart, that idea that, hey, I want to help people where they're at, whether it's, in church, whether it's family or friends, or in a corporate setting, because you want to, as you said, make great leaders, great team, great employees, and all that. So tell us a little bit about that, and even, if you don't mind, you can share like some struggles, kind of thinking through, not just for yourself as you've been doing this business, but also struggles as like thinking through, well, I want to help people in a corporate setting. I want to help people and help employees, help businesses, and kind of thinking about that. And I know that it, hasn't been all wine and roses, but at the same time, what have you learned from those sort of maybe obstacles or challenges or anything that you have encountered either as an employee, as a coach, just kind of taking all of that. I know it's kind of a loaded question, but kind of, feel free to kind of answer that as you can.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, it definitely, when I left corporate and started my own firm, I was thinking about the work that I would be doing with the clients, the consulting on leadership and teams and culture. And I didn't think about everything you've got to do to build a business to get to that point. That was some oversight on my part. So yes, to your point, and after going from large corporate companies where even with a team of 20 people and a company of 16,000, there was, so all that to say, yeah, when I started the business, I knew nothing about business networking, about growing clientele. I was in IT, the department that I led, we were basically an internal consulting company that would use technology to automate various different things for companies internally. So I was consulting, but there, my reputation preceded me within the company. My department was known as a department that could help people solve various problems with technology. So people came to me saying, can you solve this problem for me? When I started my own business, I realized I don't have that reputation yet. And we had moved from California to Texas. I was born and raised in Texas, but my wife was from California, and we lived out there for 12 years and moved back here right before I started my business. So I was in a whole different business network environment. A lot of my professional connections were in California. So yeah, that was definitely some growing pains, and met you through NIA, like you mentioned, in networking. So I've learned a lot about that, and the good side of that I love is building relationships. Since, as I mentioned, what motivates me is helping people grow and succeed. So I've loved the networking component of that, but starting from scratch with a whole new business as a solopreneur has been an interesting journey. So that's some of the challenges, I guess, just going from where you're in a large corporate environment to being a business of one, where you're wearing all the hats. One of the things that I'll say is looking for ways to take advantage of other people's skills. In business networking, I've met people like you that do websites. And so, as I grow my website, you're a resource that I can call on to help me do that, so I don't have to. Or, bookkeeping, I met people, as I grow my business, let me have them do that so that I can focus. So I would say for people that are building their businesses, looking for ways to delegate the parts of the work that needs to get done that either you're not passionate about, not as skilled in, and let people shine in what they do so that you can shine in what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
Another thing that I would share, and this is something within my business that I consult on, is, for example, building resilience in a workplace and amongst a group of employees. Resilience is that ability to bounce back from hardships. And so I do a presentation about growing that within a workplace, and Google did a study of what makes the highest performing teams. And they found it's not who's paid the most. It's not who has just the smartest people. It's where are their teams with high levels of psychological safety. That enables them to be innovative and to find new solutions and to grow. So the reason I bring that up is for the business builders that you mentioned. Resilience is a skill set that we're all always growing in, and that will be really key when you do face those challenges, because as you mentioned, things are going to be hard. We're going to hit challenges. We're going to fall. We're going to get knocked down, but it's about how do you get back up? And so, and how do you keep fighting the fight? Persistence, people say, what's a key to success? And one of the keys I like to share is practicing persistence with purpose, living on purpose with persistence. So knowing your why. There's a book, Simon Sinek's Start with the Why. So for business leaders to make sure they and their employees, to the extent that they have them, have a very clear why that's truly motivating and inspiring, that's going to keep them motivated when the times do get tough, so that they keep fighting that fight. And then it's just about persistence, keeping at it. So yeah, those are some, I guess, lessons I've learned without going
Yeah.
on too long.
No, yeah, no, that's fantastic. Yeah, that's I was actually listening to a podcast, and kind of talking about that same exact thing, kind of understanding your why. And that's kind of become in some circles, I guess, kind of cliche, but you're spot on though, because you have to have that persistence. And I believe it was Alex Hormozy, and he was talking about, there's like, he talks about the game within the game, but he says, very, very similar. You're not just wanting to hit, well, I want to help people, right? Or I want to make money. Well, cool. Well, let's say you start making money. Well, what's the next step beyond that? What's past that? Like, that can't just be your why, and he used the example of like kids or something, or, in your case, employees, I would assume like, well, I want a paycheck. Well, it's got to be more than that. I want to do more than that, because if you hit that paycheck, well, that's cool, right? But it's kind of moving beyond that. And I think that you're right, because persistence, and I love the way that you said that. You said persistence with a purpose. I think that that's awesome. And that even got me thinking about myself, and just kind of, the struggles that I have, and the challenges that I have just in, design and all that. But I want to tackle something you had mentioned. So, you walk them through this process, and what are some of the steps, or what are some of the, I don't want to say categories, but what are some of the, so I guess we'll just say this way: if someone, business or whoever, hires you, what is the process that you take them through? What is it? What are some resources? Just kind of walk us through that in whatever, length or detail that you want.
Yeah, sure. So one of the things that I say differentiates me, I very much customize my solutions for the people that I'm working with. It's not a cookie cutter offering that I do this with every single person. It's really listening to what are the challenges they're facing as a company, as an organization, and how can I help them with that? And it is focusing, I'll differentiate, first of all, when I'm consulting with a company, it's all on the people development side of the business. So when people hear some of what I do, they say, "Oh, you're a business coach." And I say, not really. Yes and no. I do coaching with executives, but a lot of business coaches will focus more on the finance side of the business, the marketing, the business strategy, the go-to-market. I don't do any of that. It's really all about the people development of the organization, growing leadership, growing teams, growing culture. And so that's one thing that I would say. So, and then as far as you mentioned, the process for it, it's really about, again, listening to what are their pain points. Is it they, as a leader, they were a newly promoted manager and they want to grow their leadership skills to be a better leader? Okay, let's do some assessments that will get you data about where you're at on various different scales or spectrums, and see what might be growth areas that we want to identify. What are your strengths that we want to capitalize on, and how can you apply those in your work to be all the more effective with your employees and your team? Or, maybe it's their team is not reaching the goals that they're looking for. They're just not achieving the performance that they'd like to see. Again, with a lot of these, I like to start with data, doing different assessments to see where they're at. So with teams, there's a team assessment that we can do that'll see where they at on things like trust, accountability, conflict. How are they engaging that, or are they avoiding it, or is it just blowing up? Conflict is a good thing. Some people think, oh, we've got to avoid conflict. No, if you avoid conflict, you're not going to innovate, you're not going to grow. So, but you want to do it in a healthy and productive way. So that's what we'll work towards doing. Then we might do some workshops for hiring managers. It's about using some of these assessments to help them as they're bringing on new employees, make sure they're going to be the right fit with the team for good dynamics within the team and good performance within the role. So again, we'll use some of these assessments and make sure that they're getting the best candidate into those jobs that they hire. And then on culture, and this is a program that I use that's very unique. And I was a client of theirs before I was a consultant for them. So when I worked in corporate, we hired this company called CultureWise to help us shape the company culture when I was working corporate. And I helped roll out that program. We eventually grew that to over 1,000 employees that we were using this program for. And when people hear culture, they think, oh, that's sort of touchy-feely, esoteric, and properly understood, it's not. It's very practical, very actionable. But the key is you've got to go from a company's values, which most companies have, but unfortunately they're just in the employee handbook or on posters on the wall, and it's not really actionable. We'll say from those values, what are the behaviors that drive those? And then how can we tie those into the daily and weekly rituals of the company, the meetings that you're having, the recognition systems that you have? And they had a mobile app that can go on every employee's device that helps reinforce this. And so I was a big fan of that when we rolled that out corporate. When I started my consulting business, they were the first company that I contacted and became a licensed consultant, helping other companies implement that system. So that's a program that I'm a big fan of. Like I say, to me, is one of the most practical, actionable systems for shaping a company's culture to really get the results that companies are looking for.
That's really awesome. And that was actually going to be one of my questions to kind of segue off of that a little bit to continue on with that. What are some results that you have seen just working with clients as well as also working in corporate, utilizing these systems that you, or I guess utilizing the systems that you've been using, which I guess is kind of saying the same thing, but.
Yeah. So one thing is really about talent attraction and retention. I'm doing a presentation next week with some law firms about this because, getting the right talented employees is going to make or break a small company. And for a large company, it's going to be the difference between growth or status quo. And people have commonly heard this idea of the war for talent. Increasingly as companies' productivity is going up, complexity is going up, getting the employees that can perform at that high level. And you invest so much as a company in training these employees, getting them developed to reach that level of productivity. When they walk out the door, the average cost of a lost employee is 0.5 to 2x their salary. So if you have a $100,000 employee that quits, that just costs the company $50,000 to $200,000. So obviously you multiply that by a bunch, you start to get really big numbers really quick for more mid-sized, larger businesses. And for smaller businesses, when you lose that key employee, like I say, that can make or break the business. So in terms of results, staff retention and attraction is really a big result that we like to look for. Going from being that company that has to recruit and find that talent, if you create the right environment for your employees where they become fans of your company, they become your recruiters. You don't have to spend as much. They go out, they tell their friends, I love where I work. It's a great place to be. And then they start, we're hiring. Let me go find this other talented friend of mine and bring them in. And that's where we want to get companies to, because then they become the magnet that's attracting that talent and retaining it, instead of having to go out and hunt for it and find it from other people. And I'll use as an example, when I was working with this company corporate in the San Francisco Bay Area, I was leading a team of web developers and technology developers, software engineers in the San Francisco Bay Area, one of the most competitive markets for it in the country. And for a company that it wasn't Google or Apple or Facebook, but that's who I was competing with for talent. And my company couldn't pay what they did, but we had very high employee retention. And when I started for that company, I only thought I'd work there for 3 to 5 years, and I ended up staying for over 12 because I had a great boss, a great team, and good culture within the business unit that I worked in. And that kept me there even though I knew I could have gone elsewhere and made more money. And so it's a similar thing with companies. If they want to attract and retain that talent, and maybe they don't have, you mentioned it's not just the paycheck, and that'll be one of the things that I'll be talking with these law firms about. Obviously, money's important. People are looking for that. They've got to pay their bills. But past a certain point, money will only get them so far. And within a lot of law firms, they've got a lot of firms that are paying well, and I'm presenting to some smaller firms that may not, sort of like what I mentioned, my company in the Bay Area, they couldn't pay what Google or Facebook was. But I stayed there for a long time, knowing I could have gone elsewhere and made more money. So when you create that environment that is engaging, I saw a study with Gallup. 51% of employees are quiet quitting, meaning they're not engaged.
Yeah, I've heard of that.
They're there, they're doing what they have to get by. But you go from that to an engaged employee that's really enjoying their work, performing well, learning, growing. That they estimate a difference in $8 trillion in performance throughout globe. That's globally, a global number. If you took those employees and got them engaged, you're talking about a difference in $8 trillion in productivity. So obviously makes a big difference for the people at a personal level, but it also makes big differences for the companies at a financial level.
Yeah, wow, that is definitely, I have heard of that quiet quitting, and you see that a lot, just kind of in hearing about that, because it's one of those things like, well, people are kind of like chasing the money almost, right? But when you have a culture, like you said, you could have gone somewhere else, but the culture there, kind of kept you and all that. So that's really awesome. And you had mentioned, so that was actually really great. You had mentioned that you're going to, now obviously people will see this much later, right? Like in a year from now, it's not going to matter. But you said that you're going to be given a couple, or you said that you're going to be giving a presentation to lawyers. Could you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so that'll be private. That's within members of an organization called Primaris, which is an association of boutique law firms. So I'll be presenting for them. But I think what you're referencing, I had mentioned to you, I do have 2 presentations coming up that are public. And I think you mentioned you'll put the links to those.
Yes. Yeah, I'll put the links in the description.
But one of those will be online, a webinar on April 3rd. One of them will be an in-person at the Pflugerville Library, April 26th. Both free events organized by an organization called SCORE, which helps small businesses get started, helps them with their business plan. And what we're going to be discussing is the people planning part of planning their business. So whether they're, forming this business or newly formed and looking to grow, helping them think about the people planning side of their business strategy. It impacts their marketing. It impacts their customer retention. It impacts their productivity. So we'll be talking about all of that to help them think through that side of their business plan.
Awesome. Okay, cool. Yeah, and I will definitely put that in the description. Obviously, at some point it won't be relevant anymore, but hopefully people will definitely see that beforehand. So for the webinar, will they have a replay of that? Do you know?
That's a good question. I know that they do with some. I'll have to check in with them and see. I think that they make some of these available as recordings after. I'm not sure if this particular session will be or not.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, regardless, I'm definitely going to link that in there. Well, Chad, I really appreciate you coming today. And before we go, is there anything else that you wanted to let us know? Maybe just kind of some advice when kind of thinking specifically, what are the type of clients that you are looking to work with and type of clients, but then also on the reverse, what should clients or business, whatever your ideal client is, what should they be thinking of in order to be like, yeah, you know what, I think I do need some help with A, B, or C. So I guess kind of hitting on both sides.
Yeah, sure. So ideal clients that you mentioned, I like to work with growth-oriented, growth-minded companies that at least have some size already. Maybe they're a $2 million, $3 million company with, let's say, 10, 20, 25 employees. And in the next 5 years, they want to be 250 employees with 20 million in revenue, or 50 million in revenue. So those growth-oriented companies, I want to help them grow from that size up to, where they're starting to hire large HR teams for staff development that do what I do. I want to bridge the gap. So that might be coming alongside a company of 25 employees. They've got somebody that started the company, leads the company doing whatever the company does, tech, finance, one of the trades. They're great at what they do, but they don't have somebody to help them do the people side of the business. and I can partner with them in that. Or they've got a HR, maybe one or two full-time people, but they're focusing on the must-haves of hiring and firing and compensation, benefits, compliance, all those type things. And they know that culture and team development, leadership development is important, and they just don't have the bandwidth for it. And I can be a partner alongside of them over the next 3 to 5 years to help the company, like I say, go from 25 employees to 250. So that's what I like to do for the companies that are doing that. Some things to think about is really recognizing the significance of investing in the people. As I mentioned earlier, Gallup said $8 trillion in lost productivity. Another study from the Society of Human Resource Management, just for U.S. companies, said companies have lost $220 billion with a B,
oh my gosh,
dollars due to toxic work cultures. And too often people will think, oh, that'll take care of itself, or we've got good people, it'll just take care of itself. And you may be lucky enough that as a small company, you started it out with great people and you do have a good culture. But I say culture is sort of like a boulder on a hill. Left to its own, it's going to roll downhill and take the company down with it. If you're not consistently investing in your people, investing in your culture, as the company grows and more people come in, you're going to lose some of that initial spark that you had as a company and that focus on those values that you had that started the company. And it's going to sort of deteriorate over time. So that's one thing I would say is just, if you have a good culture, first of all, what are you doing to keep it good? And what are you doing to take it from good to great? Because culture is like art. It's never perfected. You always have room to get better. And then finally, just recognizing really the significance of investing in your people. Companies invest in marketing and in technology. They don't recognize it's people that are executing those marketing plans, people that are running that technology. And if you're not investing in your people, they're the greatest asset the company has that's going to differentiate whether the company goes at sort of a mediocre pace or explodes over the next 5, 10, 20 years. So really makes a big difference for companies.
Yeah, definitely. Well, that's really awesome. I really appreciate you because I think you're right. You know, it's cool to have all this cool marketing things and to have like the latest and greatest, you know, but someone is there's someone that's pushing that button, if you will. Someone's making that stuff. Someone's thinking through all that, and it's important to have that culture. Well, Chad, I really appreciate it, and I'll put all this in the description as well. But where are some places that people can find you, like websites, social networks, all that sort of stuff? Where are some places? And like I said, I'm also going to put that down below in case they don't catch all that.
Yeah, sure. My website's www.lifeabundantleadership.com. lifeabundantleadership.com. LinkedIn, I'm pretty active on and connect with people that way. So that's a good way for folks to connect with me. Chad Miller on LinkedIn. And if you search Chad Miller, Life Abundant Leadership, that should get people there. And then, like you said, I'll send you the link so you can put my LinkedIn profile there. Oh, and email, people can always email me, chad@lifeabundantleadership.com.
Okay, cool. Awesome. Well, Chad, I really appreciate you taking some time out today to do that. I know you got some presentations and different networking groups to go. So that was a really great interview. I really, even for myself, really thinking through some things, patience and persistence and, really having a purpose and really kind of thinking through those things. So I hope that everybody that watches this gets something out of it, because that was really great. And I appreciate you coming out today, and I'll probably see you around. So thanks so much for taking time out today and for the great interview, Chad. I appreciate that.
My pleasure. Great chatting with you.
All right. I'll talk to you later, Chad. Have a great afternoon.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.